Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests and fellow leaders, I stand before you today to speak about one of the most profound and transformative truths that can change the course of our lives and the world we live in. It is the truth about the divine source of authority. In a world where authority is often tied to power, status, or titles, Myles Munroe wrote one of the most insightful leaders and teachers of our time, reminded us of a higher and purer source of authority, the Creator himself. Myles Munroe believed that authority is not something we can seize or earn through manipulation or force. Rather, true authority flows from the divine, and it is given to us to reflect the image and purpose of the Creator. Now, let's explore 3 key points from Dr. Munroe's teachings on authority, which I believe will guide us towards a deeper understanding of this concept and how we can live it out every day. Authority is rooted in the divine purpose. The concept of authority has always been at the center of human civilization. In every corner of the world, authority plays a fundamental role in how societies are structured, how leadership is executed, and how order is maintained. For many, authority is something that is claimed or earned, often through power, wealth, or status. But the true foundation of authority is not to be found in human striving or manipulation. It lies in a deeper, more profound understanding, one that connects authority to a divine purpose. Dr. Myles Munroe, a revered leader and thinker, believed that authority is ultimately rooted in the divine. His teachings remind us that authority is not a mere human construct, nor is it about asserting control or dominance over others. Instead, authority flows from a divine purpose, and it is given to us not for self-aggrandizement, but for service, leadership, and the fulfillment of God's grand design for humanity. When we consider the idea that authority is rooted in divine purpose, we must first understand what we mean by purpose. Purpose in its truest form is the reason for which something exists. It is the guiding principle, the deep driving force that provides meaning to life. Purpose isn't just about individual goals or desires. It is about the fulfillment of a larger plan, a plan that transcends individual ambitions and aligns with the greater good of humanity and the world. The divine purpose, then, is the plan set forth by the Creator for His creation. It is a purpose that calls for individuals to reflect His character, serve one another, and lead the world toward a state of peace, harmony, and fulfillment. This is where authority enters the picture. Authority, in its divine context, is not a tool of oppression or exploitation. It is an instrument to fulfill the Creator's purpose in the world. It is a gift entrusted to us, not for selfish gain, but to carry out God's will and establish His kingdom on earth. True authority, as Dr. Munroe often emphasized, is not about gaining control over people. It is about aligning oneself with a divine purpose that transcends personal ambitions. It is about knowing that the power given to us is not ours to hoard, but to share in service to others. One of the key misunderstandings in human history is the idea that authority is synonymous with dominance. In many cultures, authority has often been used as a way to dominate, oppress, and control. This view of authority assumes that those in power are entitled to use their position for their own benefit, and that authority flows from the ability to impose will on others. However, when authority is understood as being rooted in a divine purpose, this mindset is turned on its head. Rather than being a means of control, authority becomes a means of service. It is not about bending others to our will, but about aligning our will with the will of the divine. To grasp this deeper understanding of authority, we must turn to the teachings of Jesus Christ, who, as the ultimate example of divine authority, redefined what true authority looks like. In the New Testament, Jesus continually demonstrates that His authority was not rooted in power or position, but in His intimate connection with God's will and His purpose for humanity. He did not seek to control or manipulate others. Instead, He sought to serve, to heal, to teach, and to guide people toward a deeper relationship with the Creator. Jesus displayed the highest form of authority by washing the feet of his disciples, an act that in his time was seen as the lowest form of service. In doing so, he demonstrated that authority is not about exaltation, but humility. True authority, according to Jesus, is not wielded to subdue others, but to elevate and empower them. This principle of servant leadership, as Dr. Munroe often pointed out, is at the heart of the divine purpose for authority. Authority is not a privilege to be exploited, but a responsibility to be exercised with integrity, humility, and wisdom. When we recognize that our authority is not ours to claim, but a gift given to us for a divine purpose, we begin to see leadership in a different light. It is not about lording over others or seeking power for the sake of power, but about guiding others toward their own fulfillment and helping them recognize their own divine purpose. True authority empowers others, inspires them, and helps them grow. It is a force for good in the world, and its aim is always to build up, never to tear down. This is where the idea of stewardship becomes critical. Authority, when understood as rooted in divine purpose, becomes something that must be stewarded with care and responsibility. Just as a steward is entrusted with the care of someone else's property or resources, we are entrusted with the authority given to us by the Creator. It is not something that we can take for granted or use recklessly. The authority we possess must be exercised in a way that honors God and serves His purpose in the world. This requires humility, discernment, and a willingness to submit our own will to the greater good. It requires that we remain connected to the divine source of authority and that we continuously seek to align our actions with God's will. This understanding of authority also carries with it a profound responsibility to those we lead. If authority is rooted in divine purpose, then our actions as leaders must reflect the values and principles of that purpose. This means that we are called to lead with love, to lead with integrity, and to lead with a deep commitment to justice and righteousness. We are called to make decisions that not only serve our own interests, but that serve the greater good of humanity. We are called to be compassionate, to be generous, and to be just. We are called to reflect the character of the Creator in our leadership. Furthermore, the divine purpose for authority calls us to recognize the inherent worth and dignity of every individual. Since authority is not about exerting control over others, but about fulfilling a higher purpose, it follows that the exercise of authority must be grounded in respect for the autonomy and agency of others. Authority, when used rightly, does not seek to subjugate or dominate. It seeks to lift others up, to empower them to fulfill their own divine purpose. Every person is created with a unique purpose, and as leaders, our role is to help others discover and live out that purpose. This requires a deep respect for others as individuals, and a commitment to fostering an environment where they can flourish. Dr. Munroe often spoke about the importance of vision in leadership. And it is through this lens that we can further understand the connection between authority and divine purpose. Vision, in the context of leadership, is the ability to see beyond the present circumstances and to understand the bigger picture, the greater purpose that drives all human activity. Vision allows leaders to see the potential in others, to understand what is possible, and to inspire people to reach for something higher. It is through vision that leaders are able to direct their authority toward a purpose that transcends the immediate and the personal. True vision, according to Dr. Munroe, is always aligned with God's vision for humanity, a vision of peace, justice, and prosperity for all people. When authority is understood as rooted in divine purpose, it is also understood as something that transcends time and circumstance. It is not limited by the constraints of culture, nationality, or social status. Authority, in its truest form, is a universal principle that applies to all people and all situations. It is a principle that calls us to act in accordance with the will of the Creator, regardless of the challenges we may face. This is why Dr. Munroe emphasized that those who lead with divine authority are able to overcome adversity, to bring about positive change, and to make an impact on the world that endures long after they are gone. Divine authority is not bound by the limitations of the world. It is a force for transformation that operates on a higher plane. Ultimately, when we recognize that authority is rooted in divine purpose, we realize that our role as leaders is not to build our own kingdoms, but to participate in building God's kingdom on earth. Our authority is given to us not for personal glory or self-interest, but for the greater good of all people. This realization can change the way we approach leadership, service, and authority itself. It shifts our perspective from one of competition and control to one of collaboration and humility. It calls us to see ourselves not as masters of others, but as stewards of a divine responsibility. It challenges us to lead with love, to serve with grace, and to use our authority to fulfill the greater purpose for which we were created. True authority is not about wielding power or commanding obedience. It is about serving others with humility, empathy, and purpose. This concept of authority was powerfully articulated by Dr. Myles Munroe, whose teachings on leadership consistently emphasize that the essence of true authority is rooted in servant leadership. In his vision, the greatest leaders are not those who exert control or demand respect, but those who lift others up, empower them, and lead by example. Quote, "True authority, according to Dr. Munroe, is not exercised through dominance, but through service. It is through our service to others that we reflect the highest form of leadership and embody the principles of love, integrity, and compassion." At the heart of servant leadership lies the radical idea that leadership is not about the leader, it is about the people being led. In traditional forms of leadership, authority often appears as a means of control or dominance. Leaders are often perceived as individuals who have power over others, whose decisions dictate the actions of their followers. But Dr. Munroe understood that true authority does not flow from the ability to control, but from the willingness to serve. True authority arises when a leader sees themselves not as the master, but as the servant, understanding that their role is to guide, nurture, and support others as they fulfill their own potential and purpose. The fundamental idea that leadership is service takes us to the teachings of Jesus Christ, who, as the ultimate model of servant leadership, redefined what authority truly means. In the Gospels, we see Jesus demonstrating servant leadership at every turn. He did not come to be served, but to serve, and he modeled this in profound ways, even through his actions. One of the most powerful examples of this is found in the account of Jesus washing the feet of his disciples. In this simple yet profound act, Jesus demonstrated that true leadership does not involve lording over others, but humbling oneself in service. Foot washing, a task usually reserved for the lowliest of servants, became the symbol of the kind of authority Jesus embodied, an authority that was rooted in humility, love, and sacrifice. This radical shift in the understanding of authority has profound implications for how we approach leadership in all aspects of life. In the workplace, in our families, in our communities, and even in our churches, we must ask ourselves, are we leading with a spirit of service? Are we seeking to empower others, to elevate them, and to guide them toward their fullest potential? Or are we operating from a place of control, demanding compliance, and seeking to be served? True authority, as taught by Dr. Munroe and exemplified by Jesus, is about the latter. It is about leading through service, not through control. One of the key attributes of servant leadership is the recognition that leadership is a responsibility, not a privilege. Too often, leaders are seen as those who hold positions of power and influence, and there is a temptation to use this power for personal gain or status. But servant leadership flips this notion on its head. Leadership is not about seeking personal advantage. It is about embracing the responsibility to serve the needs of others. This is the essence of true authority, to be entrusted with a role, a platform, or a position not for self-glorification, but for the good of others. A servant leader understands that they are in their position not because they are entitled to it, but because they are entrusted with it for a greater purpose. This responsibility to serve extends beyond the immediate needs of those we lead. It also involves a commitment to their growth, development, and well-being. A servant leader takes the time to understand the needs, desires, and aspirations of those they lead and works to create an environment in which those individuals can thrive. This may mean providing guidance and mentorship, offering encouragement and support, or simply listening and being present. It means putting the needs of others before our own desires for recognition, power, or control. True leadership, therefore, is not about making ourselves look good or securing our own position. It is about empowering others to grow and succeed. Servant leadership is also about empathy, the ability to understand and relate to the experiences, challenges, and emotions of those around us. This is a key characteristic of true authority. Leaders who are empathetic are able to build trust and rapport with those they lead, creating a bond of mutual respect and understanding. Empathy enables leaders to see the world from the perspective of others, to respond to their needs with compassion, and to make decisions that take into account the well-being of everyone involved. It is a leadership style that values connection over hierarchy, and it fosters an environment in which people feel valued, heard, and respected. Another central aspect of servant leadership is the willingness to make sacrifices for the good of others. Dr. Munroe often spoke about the importance of selflessness in leadership. To lead effectively, one must be willing to sacrifice personal desires, time, and resources in order to serve others. This is not a leadership style that seeks to exploit others for personal gain, but one that is rooted in genuine care and concern for the people being led. Whether it is staying late to help a colleague with a project, offering encouragement to someone facing personal challenges, or making difficult decisions that prioritize the welfare of others, servant leadership requires a willingness to put the needs of others before our own. A servant leader also leads with integrity. Integrity is the foundation upon which trust is built, and trust is essential for effective leadership. People follow leaders who are honest, ethical, and consistent in their actions. When a leader demonstrates integrity, they inspire confidence and loyalty in those they lead. Integrity is not just about doing the right thing when it is convenient. It is about making decisions that reflect a deep commitment to values such as honesty, fairness, and justice, even when it is difficult or unpopular. Servant leaders understand that their actions, both in public and in private, must align with their words, and they strive to be models of moral excellence for those they lead. True authority also involves a deep sense of humility. Humility is the opposite of pride, and it is the quality that enables leaders to see themselves as equals to those they lead. A humble leader does not see themselves as superior, but as someone entrusted with the responsibility to serve. Humility allows a leader to admit mistakes, ask for help, and acknowledge the contributions of others. It fosters a culture of collaboration where everyone feels valued and empowered to contribute to the success of the team or organization. Humility also allows a leader to recognize that they do not have all the answers and that they are constantly learning and growing. This openness to growth and change is a hallmark of servant leadership, as it demonstrates that the leader is committed not only to their own development, but also to the development of those around them. In addition, servant leadership calls for a deep sense of accountability. Servant leaders understand that they are accountable not only to those they lead, but also to the higher purpose or vision that drives their leadership. This accountability to a greater mission ensures that their decisions and actions are always aligned with the values and goals that they hold dear. It also ensures that they remain focused on the long-term well-being of those they lead, rather than being swayed by short-term gains or pressures. Accountability is what helps servant leaders stay true to their commitment to serve others, even in the face of challenges or opposition. Ultimately, true authority as servant leadership is about creating an environment where people can grow, flourish, and reach their full potential. A servant leader's role is to create the conditions in which those they lead can thrive and to guide them toward achieving their own goals and fulfilling their own purpose. True authority does not come from control or coercion, but from empowering others to act with confidence, creativity, and conviction. It is about being a catalyst for positive change and transformation in the lives of others, helping them become the best version of themselves. In this way, servant leadership reflects the highest form of authority, an authority that is rooted in love, humility, and a deep commitment to the well-being of others. Authority is trust and stewardship. At the core of this understanding lies a powerful truth. Authority is not something we own or control in an absolute sense, but something that is entrusted to us by a higher power. It is a responsibility that must be managed with care, integrity, and wisdom. Dr. Myles Munroe, a visionary leader and teacher, often emphasized that true authority is not about wielding power for personal gain, but about being entrusted with the resources, people, and responsibilities that belong to a greater purpose. In his view, authority is fundamentally about stewardship, the careful management of what has been given to us. It is an understanding that whatever authority we have in our lives, whether it be in our families, our workplaces, or our communities, is not ours to do with as we please, but something we must manage in a way that honors the trust placed in us. When we think of authority as trust, we must first recognize that this trust is not merely about having power over others. It is about being entrusted with the power to influence, guide, and direct. In the divine context, authority is a sacred responsibility given to individuals for the purpose of serving the greater good. God, as the ultimate source of authority, gives humans authority to fulfill His divine purpose on earth, and He expects us to manage that authority with the utmost responsibility. This perspective shifts our view of authority from something we possess to something we are accountable for. It calls us to act not out of self-interest or a desire for control, but with a deep sense of duty and commitment to the well-being of those we lead and the goals we are meant to accomplish. The concept of stewardship as related to authority teaches us that authority is not a permanent fixture or a right that cannot be taken away. It is a trust, a temporary and conditional responsibility that must be handled with care. Just as a steward manages someone else's property, we too are stewards of the authority given to us. We do not own the authority we have. It is simply entrusted to us for a time, and we are called to manage it in a way that honors the intentions of the one who gave it to us. When we understand this, we begin to recognize that how we use our authority matters deeply. It is not just about what we do with our position or our power. It is about how we manage it in relation to others and in service to a higher purpose. One of the key aspects of stewarding authority is the recognition that we are not the ultimate source of that authority. The power we wield is not from our own strength, intelligence, or merit, but is granted to us by the Creator. This understanding calls us to humility and gratitude. It reminds us that any authority we have is temporary and conditional upon our ability to manage it with wisdom and integrity. Dr. Munroe often spoke about the importance of recognizing that our role as leaders, parents, or influencers is not about asserting our will or asserting control over others, but about fulfilling a divine purpose through our actions. This humility allows us to approach authority with a spirit of service rather than entitlement. Instead of thinking of ourselves as the ones who own authority, we must view ourselves as caretakers, tasked with using our influence in a way that aligns with the greater good and honors the trust that has been placed in us. Stewardship also requires accountability. When we are entrusted with authority, we are expected to use it wisely, and our actions will be judged based on how well we manage it. This accountability is not only to the people we lead, but also to the one who entrusted us with that authority. It calls us to a higher standard of responsibility and integrity. As stewards of authority, we must be vigilant about how we use our influence and power. and we must be able to deprive ourselves of all self-esteem and remain mortally comfortable with our benevolence with God. Are we using our authority to serve others and fulfill our divine purpose, or are we using it for personal gain? Are we managing the resources, relationships, and opportunities given to us in a way that is faithful and just? These are the questions we must ask ourselves as we seek to steward the authority. The concept of authority as trust and stewardship also calls us to a sense of justice and fairness. Those who are entrusted with authority are not meant to use it to exploit, oppress, or manipulate others. Instead, they are to use their position to bring about justice, to protect the vulnerable, and to ensure that the needs of others are met. Authority, when stewarded correctly, is a powerful tool for creating positive change and transformation. This is particularly true in leadership. A leader who understands that authority is a trust is less likely to make decisions that benefit only themselves or their inner circle. Instead, they will act in the interest of the larger community, making decisions that are fair, just, and in alignment with the greater purpose they are serving. One of the key responsibilities of stewardship is the careful management of resources. When we are entrusted with authority, we are also entrusted with resources, people, finances, time, and opportunities. These resources are not ours to squander or misuse, but to manage responsibly. Good stewardship of authority means using the resources available to us wisely, ensuring that they are used in ways that support the goals and purposes we are meant to fulfill. This requires foresight, planning, and a long-term vision. It means making decisions that are not just beneficial in the short term, but that will create lasting impact and positive change for the future. In addition to managing material resources, stewardship of authority also involves the care and development of the people entrusted to our leadership. Just as a gardener tends to the plants in their care, ensuring that they receive the right amount of water, sunlight, and care, so too must a leader tend to the growth and development of the people they lead. Stewardship calls us to create environments where others can thrive, where their talents can be nurtured, and where they are supported in their journey toward their own goals and fulfillment. This means providing guidance, offering mentorship, and creating opportunities for growth. It also means listening to the needs of others and responding with empathy. A true steward of authority understands that their role is to help others succeed, not to compete with them or hinder their progress. The stewardship of authority also requires wisdom in decision-making. Because authority is a trust, the decisions we make have consequences, not just for ourselves, but for those who are impacted by our actions. This means that we must approach decision-making with careful consideration and a strong sense of responsibility. Dr. Munroe often taught that leaders must be able to discern the will of God in their decisions. This requires wisdom, discernment, and a deep understanding of the values and principles that guide our actions. Stewarding authority wisely means making decisions that are in alignment with divine purpose, that benefit the common good, and that foster justice and righteousness. An essential part of stewarding authority is the recognition that we are accountable not only to those around us, but also to God. As stewards of authority, we are ultimately answerable to the one who has given us that authority. This understanding encourages us to act with integrity, knowing that our actions will be judged according to how well we have managed the trust placed in us. When we recognize that our authority is a sacred responsibility, we are more likely to approach our role with humility, care, and diligence. We understand that our decisions and actions have eternal significance, and we seek to honor the trust placed in us by using our authority to bring about good in the world. The final aspect of authority as trust and stewardship is the recognition that stewardship is a continuous process. Authority is not something that can be taken for granted or left to chance. It requires ongoing effort, self-reflection, and growth. As stewards of authority, we must continually assess how we are using our influence, whether we are fulfilling our responsibilities and whether we are acting in accordance with the higher purpose for which we have been entrusted. Stewardship is not a one-time act. It is a continual commitment to managing authority with excellence, integrity, and care. This process of stewardship requires ongoing learning, adaptation, and a willingness to make adjustments as needed in order to fulfill our responsibilities faithfully. When we understand that authority is trust and stewardship, we begin to approach leadership, service, and influence in a fundamentally different way. We move away from a mindset of control, power, and entitlement, and embrace a mindset of responsibility, humility, and service. We recognize that the authority we have is not for our own benefit, but for the benefit of others and the fulfillment of a greater purpose. When we sit in control, we take pride in what we do. We recognize that the authority we have is not for our own benefit, but for the benefit of others and the fulfillment of a greater purpose. Stewarding authority in this way transforms not only the way we lead, but the way we interact with others, make decisions, and use the resources at our disposal. It calls us to be faithful, responsible, and wise stewards, using the authority entrusted to us to make a positive impact on the world and to honor the trust placed in us by the Creator. So, my friends, as we stand today, let's ask ourselves, are we living out the authority entrusted to us in a way that reflects our divine source? Are we leading with purpose, serving with humility, and stewarding the authority we've been given with wisdom? Myles Munroe's message is clear. True authority comes from God, and it is given to us for a higher purpose, to serve, to lead with love, and to make the world a better place. When we align ourselves with this truth, we become not just leaders, but vessels of the Creator's power and vision in the world. Let us honor the divine source of authority by embracing our purpose, living as servant leaders, and stewarding the trust placed in us with the greatest care. May we always lead in a way that reflects the Creator's heart and brings glory to His name. Thank you.